sacarla.
No,
Es que esa es la obligación legal.
No, pero el ejercicio también es con las personas responsables de esos cursos que
Claro.
tienen ellos.
No, yo sé lo que estoy
Están prestados.
¿Cómo lo hicieron ustedes?
Yo creo que podríamos darle
¿Hicieron una marcha?
Pero no.
ahora en
Sí
adelante
hicimos, pero
ustedes se van a
nunca hemos
encargar de
invitado a
además.
siempre el criterio ha sido el profesor que dice.
No, y es por ejemplo el profesor de estructura de datos, usted debe encargarse de todo lo que quiere decir.
Claro.
Yo no sé, es una persona de importancia en el papel de la fundación.
No, ya lo que nos va a decir es que tenemos que
Estaba negociando desde el comienzo.
No, negociando.
De que tenía 4, ya tiene 6.
Mañana me acaban de decir,
Y Dalia puede volver a subir el programa con las actualizaciones.
Pero mire, por ejemplo, proyecto integrador. Los proyectos integradores están poderosamente cargados. Mire,
Pues que hay que aplicar todo eso.
sí, pero son puras, pero son apply.
Son
estamos,
aplica.
pero ¿hasta qué punto? Bueno, esto es parte de la raíz que vamos a hacer ahora, pero ¿hasta qué punto estamos
Pero tienes
cifrando demasiada expectativa de lo
Sí, ella me explicaba que en ese caso lo que hacemos es buscar otras materias, por ejemplo, mirar teoría de probabilidades, que si terminan siendo importantes, entonces podemos decir, ok, entonces démosle la responsabilidad a esa materia de asumir que está tan cargado acá, y entonces ahí hace uno, esa es parte del balanceo de cargas que se hace.
Alright, here's the next step. This is great. You've made assignments, and you would do this process, and you see the value here of getting input from people who are not systems engineering, but will look at this. They need to know a little bit about your curriculum, but wonderful input. So if you're going to do this kind of process and include your math people and your physics people, and then something, you would do it the same way. Get them involved in the group, work on just one curriculum. Okay? All right. We're not finished. This is very first draft. So now we want to look at it. Now the next step is you want to now look at it course by course. And I want to know who teaches this course. Who teaches this course?
proyecto de grado.
¿Quién
está dictando ahora el proyecto de grado?
Son todos.
Hay un coordinador serio por todos.
You take it in turns, so you each teach that. Okay. And who teaches this one?
Es también, pero ya es el proyecto de grado. The graduate project is the students choose a project in the first course, and then in the second course develop the project.
It's like the thesis project.
And they have an advisor.
It's the thesis project, actually.
We actually have one exactly like that. And do they work in pairs?
Sometimes, yes.
Together?
They actually work in pairs.
They work in pairs. Actually, we have a 2-semester sequence just like that. Okay? Where they work in pairs, they work on the proposal for the project in the first, and they have an advisor. They might have 2 advisors, but one of the advisors is the professor who suggested the project.
Yeah, that's the way it works here. They actually have 2 advisors, one for methodology and the other one for the project itself.
The experimental projects 1 and experimental projects 2. Okay. Remember we said, if it got assigned to your course, you have to do something with it in your course. It's probably going to appear in your course syllabus as a learning outcome. How do you feel with all this responsibility? And the same thing happened, I would say, is this, whereas you look at systems, is this in your department?
No.
Oh, okay. So but there may be some in your department now that really only have responsibility for 1 or 2, and they're not, okay. And the same thing happened, okay, when we did this at MIT, and just to give you, no, we did this in a relatively short amount of time. When we did this for the aerospace department at MIT, instructors were assigned the outcomes ahead of time, so they come to think about it. But we spent an entire day. We had an off-campus retreat seminar, and we worked on it a whole day, and we came back again to work on it another whole day. So you've made a lot of progress, so I don't want you to, oh gosh, we're still not finished. It is a long process, but the same thing happened. Okay, in the aerospace program, there is a project in the, and I talked about that as a project in the first year. Well, students are in the second year, but the first year we have them in the career and the capstone. And when you looked at the map, I mean, it was even more divided than this. All of the little stickies were in the first course and they were in the capstone. And no one else wanted to take responsibility. So we had to make the rule, all right, now you need to go back and you can't give them all, you know, to the Unified Engineering, which is the course that everybody takes. So you can, now we'll go look at them and say, is it reasonable to try to do all of those in that course? Or do you have to say, and there you need to go back to the instructor. And particularly where you don't have control of the program, okay, for all of these. But you were very reasonable, okay? But you still want to go back to the people who teach this course and say, would you take responsibility for introducing, you know, problem solving is one of the important learning outcomes for systems engineers. Can you address that? Are you willing to address that specifically? And we're just asking that you introduce. And in this case, I can't see where they would say, no, we're not going to do that, because algebra is really about problem solving. But you want to be careful in this one, and I'm going to come back to 2.1, is that problem solving in their mathematics courses is not the entire picture of the engineering reasoning and problem solving. So you want to make sure that that is taught by the engineers in your engineering courses. And you probably,
Yes, we have the algorithm program.
okay, all right, so we'll
Right
do that
there, next semester.
in the department. So that's the only, because, so that actually you could, you know, not even include those because, but it's fine. I like the idea of, you know, including it. Okay. The second comment I want to, before I look at the details, the second comment I want to make, and I asked a couple of you, is this idea when you have an electiva. And if I understand correctly, everybody takes an ethics course.
Yeah.
They just have a choice about which
Uh-huh.
ones.
Yeah, they can take ethics and organizations, ethics and democracy, and ethics and whatever thing. But there are three options for them to
All right.
take ethics.
So the question is, and is if this is the only place where any of these are assigned, well, let's say you're saying that you need to teach, that's the societal context. What's 4.1?
4.1, yeah, societal context.
Okay. And they have to teach, well, ethics, okay. 2.5. And they have to teach, they have to apply, they are applying Spanish. Oh, Spanish, okay. Spanish. They're speaking in Spanish, okay. If these are the only places, particularly, let's look at 2.5, because I'm sure these appear someplace else. Well, let's say 2.5.
2.5 is
Is ethics.
In,
It appears in others.
security.
Okay.
Creatividad empresarial.
The other thing you have to worry about electives, and in this case, if everybody takes an ethics course and they just have a choice about which ones, every one of the choices has to have
Those
these,
elements.
okay? If it's a free elective and not everybody takes it, it's still okay to, I wouldn't assign a teaching responsibility, it's okay to assign them as long as it's not the only place, okay? Then you can do it. For courses that some students will take and others will not, you can assign an outcome as long as it's not the only place. Someplace else, everybody is coming across it. So that's the only comment about any time you see electives.
Doris,
See?
the pictures of the whiteboard are already in the Dropbox.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking, you know, in a couple weeks and thank goodness, yes. All right. So now you need to go back and look at, it's a little bit harder here to look at the trend, to make sure that if you are applying, you've already taught. Okay? So you would want to check that. You would want, but the more serious concern right now is to go back and say, does all this have to be the responsibility of this project? Because if you're going to, remember we said, if you're introducing, maybe you have a learning outcome about it, maybe, but if the thing is, if you don't put a learning outcome, it might not, well, let me stay with what I said yesterday. If you're introducing it, you may not have a learning outcome. But if you're teaching and you're applying, you need to have a learning outcome. So now think about the syllabus for the students, okay? This is saying, is there disciplinary content in here? Do you have learning outcomes related to systems engineering in this project? Okay. So let's say you have what, 3, 4?
Yes.
In your syllabus?
Yes.
Learning outcomes related to the systems engineering?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
3 or
Now
4.
you're saying, okay, I have add to that, I have a learning outcome about problem solving, I have a learning outcome about systems thinking.
Yeah.
I have a learning outcome about
Additive learning,
lifelong learning, is that what you call it?
critical thinking.
Critical thinking, I have a learning outcome, and I'm teaching 2.8.
Learning.
Oh, innovative thinking. Okay, and I'm going to teach what's 2.7. Is that still in this project? So if I just line them up, okay, these are all in the same project here. This is all in the project course. You are going to be a very busy girl.
Thank you. I can see that.
La prima de Harry Potter.
I hope you're not teaching anything else. Of course.
I'm teaching something else.
You can't make her responsible for all those outcomes, especially if she's got, you say, well, it's just up the top, they've learned how to do it. But still, if you're saying that I'm going to be demonstrating, I'm going to be using this skill, you probably do want to assess it. Remember yesterday I said, if you teach it, you have to assess. You don't necessarily assess if you introduce. And I probably didn't make a real strong case for assessing when you apply it, but you really should. Because this is a demonstration by applying CDIO, they're demonstrating to you that they know it. So even though it's application, you really should assess them on that in this course. So look at all the assessment. Assess, 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 assess. Assess, assess. That's a lot of assessment.
Por eso, no, lo que está diciendo es que a todos les tiene que hacer evaluación.
Claro, es que miren que en ese sentido es que ahí sí se aplica que menos es más.
Pero en ese sentido.
En ese sentido,
sí,
probablemente nosotros
de acuerdo.
habíamos de alguna manera interpretado mal en el sentido que es que no tenemos que incluir todos los outputs. Sí los tenemos que incluir. Lo que pasa es que a cada curso le tenemos que dejar los vitales y no...
Y balancear, ya mencioné
Claro.
hay que balancear.
No, es que ahora tenemos con ese ejercicio lo que hay que hacer es balancear.
Claro,
Tenemos cursos que son enormemente
Quedarnos con lo
recargados.
vital.
Y que es imposible que un
Sí,
profesor lo haga,
claro.
salvo que sea Ángela.
All right, now, the other thing too is I'm not saying that that's impossible, because when you actually go to apply it, we're not looking at, even though we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10
13.
learning effort. Oh, those belong to it too?
No, y
Oh, here, okay, CDI. It doesn't mean that that's 14 different assessments. That's 14 different things. What it means is that, I'm assuming, this is a project course, so you're going to assess the project. There must be, you must end up with a project in that, because this is engineering, so there's something tangible as a project. So you would assess the project, the process of doing that project, okay? How you worked in team in that project, okay? How you communicated in that project, okay? So you're really not looking at, and then these attitudes, look, maybe part of that, you can bundle them. So you're not going to have, so it's not impossible, it's still a lot to make one person responsible. But you need to look at, the other thing you need to look at is, definitely if you're responsible for teaching, here's what you're going to make.
Innovation.
Oh yeah, I keep asking you, keep telling me. Okay. If you're teaching it, it means you're really focusing on helping students to develop innovation. You need to assess that. Now you may assess that as part of your project, and this is where you're going.
Right.
One of the criteria that you're going to use for assessing the project is going to be related to this, okay? So it's innovation. But you want to say, given I'm going to be using engineering reasoning and problem solving, have I had other opportunities to assess the students on engineering reasoning and problem solving? Okay. So you may not even want to put that in there. Okay? Because you don't have to collect any more data specifically about that. Or you can put it with your project and say it demonstrates. Okay? So, but you don't want to, because we'll want to look at that and say how many different assessment points will we end up. And again, particularly this oral communication, the communication in Spanish. Okay. Although if you're doing a project, you're really going to... This may be a separate, related to this, but when they do the project, you're probably going to want them to write a report about it and to
Make a presentation.
do a presentation.
Yes.
So you may have 3 presentations. Okay, 3 presentations. You're not going to do anything but assess. So you may have to trade out and say, look, somebody else has got to take responsibility here. Okay? And that, I mean, it's a curriculum decision, but the person who has to do it has to say, look, I can't do. It doesn't make sense for me to be responsible, for my course to be responsible. And if you have enough data points elsewhere, then I wouldn't, even though that the instructor might use that. Now, when it comes to teamwork and communication, these are just such wonderful places, and I would leave them. But maybe we think about some of the other attitudes and assess them at a different place in the curriculum, because that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, just think of what your syllabus is going to look like. I mean, it'll be 2 pages and you still are on the learning outcomes. And the same thing, so the same cautions for others. So that's the point I would do now, is to look at, you know, have we overloaded some of the courses, and can we spread it out a little bit more? And go back and say, does it make sense? Have we taught before we apply? But there's no magic number there's no formula to say, all right, if it was on the surveys, it told me it was the level of proficiency of 4. Okay, so is there a formula now that tells me how many I's and T's and A's I have, or E's and A's and I's? No, it's kind of a judgment, okay? But the ones you want to watch for particularly, okay, is teamwork, because that's very often one that we use but we haven't taught. So is somebody teaching it somewhere, okay, and are teaching before they use it? And then design. If you've given it an enseñar in every single time they use design, it's not a good use of resources. You don't have to teach it that many times. You can go ahead and design and assess. Okay? And then from here, and you have the pictures, again, you want to get input, and you may take some out. Oh, and the other comment I want to make is, if you have, let's say you've assigned some here, and the people who teach these courses say, they're going to introduce here. We give any teaching responsibilities here. Well, this is their job. This is what the course is about. Okay, so and you know that they're going to assess this, which means, why not use their data? When you're trying to make that decision later on, they're assessing in this course how well students can present orally and in writing. They're going to assess that. You're going to have assessment information. Okay? So in the end, at the end of your program, you're trying to decide, can students communicate effectively in Espanol? Go back at all the data points. And just because you didn't collect the data, doesn't make any difference. It's the data point. Okay? Teach 4.3 conceive. What is this?
Algorithms.
That's the first course in algorithm, second year programming.
Oh, in your program area. Okay. All right. I thought you were giving us okay. Great. And you're teaching problem solving. Yes. Okay. Early on, one of the first courses. Now, when do the students in systems engineering do their first project? There.
There.
Right there.
There?
Here.
Yes.
Right there.
So there's a project in this course.
Yeah.
There's something.
There's a little project in this course. Why not put, where do you teach teamwork?
Individual.
Oh, it's individual. Do they report at all? No reporting.
No,
No teamwork, no reporting,
no, they're
individual project.
no project.
Can they show, are they, well, early on, let's say innovation, they're probably just, you're lucky if they can follow the directions.
Yes.
But what do you mean for reporting?
I understand.
But in fourth semester, the projects on the third course of algorithms.
Third semester?
Fourth.
Okay, so they're still in their second year.
Yeah.
There's a major project,
Yeah.
Yes, right.
a team project, I mean?
Team project.
Here.
Yes.
Okay.
With all
So you're going to teach teamwork again?
Introduce.
Oh,
No, only introduce.
all the
It's a
introduce.
different kind of team working because they are working in software or algorithms projects.
Okay.
So we are introducing how to work in teams, but in software projects. Later, in 5th semester, we will teach them how to work in software projects.
Okay, so you're introducing the concept of working
Yes.
with someone else, talking to another
They
human being.
teach, he teaches.
Yeah. Very reasonable. So from here, you know, once you make all these adjustments, you make the adjustments that you need to make, then you go to the matrix, okay, that we saw when you started. And you have your asignaturas on the left, you have your learning outcomes. Now, these may not even be the, I mean, I want to save this data for you, but these may not be the outcomes that you're actually choosing for your program, okay? So you may go back and say, you know, we don't even have a 2.7. But the idea is, if you do, this is how you do it. But this is a good starting point. So that when you finish now you're ready to do your matrix, if you think it's reasonable. Also look at how many times. But you really will see that only when you actually do that spreadsheet. It's hard to say, you know, we've got 2.1 too many times. But so you're going to do your matrix, the asignaturas, then the learning outcomes across the top, subdivided into introducir, enseñar, aplicar, and you're simply going to put an X in the box as you did before. Okay? Then when you look at the box, then when you look at the whole spreadsheet, you can look across and say, really, do we need to be putting 2.1 into so many courses? Yes, but if we don't go back to this, what I want to do is put all the little things on the paper and take the papers and roll them up. So you have,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
I know you have the pictures.
You also have the images.
You have the pictures, but it may be worthwhile for you to take the actual charts. Or if it's not, you want the charts. Yeah, okay. Oh no, we have the pictures of them.